so much for that very kind welcome. The global economy is at an inflection point. We're only just out of the shock of the pandemic, but inflation is rising in markets around the world, as are interest rates, which are causing havoc. How's global trade faring? Is it all having an impact on the investment environment? And what's the outlook for the Asia Pacific, a region that has so much potential but faces so many challenges? Well, joining me to discuss this and much more is a very distinguished panel of guests. Ambassador Tomochika Uyama is Senior Advisor to the Director General of the World Trade Organization. Mr. John Denton is the Secretary General for the International Chamber of Commerce. Phokasub is CEO of Thai mall operator Central Retail Corporation. And Dr. Xiongjun is Chairman of liquor maker, the Moutai Group, one of China's most valuable companies. Thank you so much for being here today. Mr. Denton, if I can start with you, what's your outlook for global trade given all these headwinds that the global economy is facing?
Thanks very much, and it's great to be with you, but can I just, before I start, I've got to shout out to so many people I know in this audience. I formerly served as an Australian member of the APEC Business Advisory Council, and I have such fond memories of my time there. And it's great to see so many lions and lionesses of the APEC business community gathered here today. Friends, I've actually just come here from Sharm el-Sheikh at COP27, and I was just at the G20, where I co-chair finance and infrastructure there. And at Sharm, we crowd in at the ICC, the global business community, to try and make progress. In fact, to try and stop a kind of slip back from commitments that have been made. I'm actually really happy to be in APEC, because frankly, without the leadership of the Asia-Pacific Economic Community, but also the Asia-Pacific as an economic unit, I think we would be really struggling. I mean, as I said in an interview with Bloomberg the other day, it may not be in a recession, but it's certainly going to feel like a recession 2023 and 2024. And the ICC is a pretty amazing organization. We're in, another great old friend I see down there, we're in 170 countries. More than 70% of the ICC is in developing and emerging economies. And we get the real-time data about what's going on. We saw the impact of COVID economically in places that weren't even hit by it. So when we look out at the moment with the data we're getting, we're seeing a lot of problems. I also serve on the United Nations Secretary General's Global Crisis Response Group, which was dealing with the global implications. So I'm also looking, and I've been working on the food side, the energy side, and the finance side. And by the way, I was very pleased to originate the Black Sea Agreement, because we saw also in these crises the immediate impact of the food crisis way outside the regional conflict in Europe. It was hitting the ICC members and our constituency in Lebanon, in Africa, in Ecuador, all sorts of places, before there was actually any move by global entities to try and support them. So we're seeing all this around. So as I look out, things are tough. But actually, when I come to Asia Pacific, and I know that there's a downgrade in trade outlook, I know that there's a downgrade in a number of the economic outlooks for Asia Pacific, but when you're still putting a 4 in front of it, and when I heard the president of Vietnam put a 7 in front of the growth projections for Vietnam, you know some things are still working very well here. And what we need to focus on in Asia Pacific is what is working well and what we can make improvements on. And when I look at it, it goes to issues like we see today. One of the things which is a strength of Asia Pacific is the integration of the business or the private sector into the deliberations of the economic those who form economic policy here. It's quite a unique feature. Never lose it, which is why APEC is so important, because the leaders listen directly to your priorities, and that helps shape better policies. And there is no doubt that in the digital economy that we're operating in now, we need to ensure the leaders are also doing all they can to facilitate that, because that is providing a lot of the resilience for the supply chains, the value chains that you all operate in. So we need to ensure continued reform to keep the digital economy going, and maybe later on I can talk about that. The other is we still need to get those settings right to enable the transition, the energy transition, the carbon transition that we're working on and talking about Sham. So much opportunity in Asia Pacific in that area. Getting those settings right, those policy settings right, is critical. And the third, and I know this is an ongoing piece of work for the APEC business community, getting sustainable infrastructure flowing. The demands are huge, but the amount of money is even bigger. Translating the amount of money into those projects is going to be critical as well. So strong growth compared to the rest of the world, prospects for even stronger growth if we focus on those areas of reform. And frankly, the dynamism of this region is still something to be beholden, but keep the private sector engaged in helping shape public policy here.
Yeah, I think those are some really important points that you brought up to sort of create lasting growth in the region. Mr. Phokasub, your company is a major retail group. At a time when people aren't spending as much money, when economies are not growing, and we have so many consumption economies in this region, what's your outlook?
To Bangkok, right? This is the third time that we actually host the APEC. And then since you are here, I think you can witness that Thailand are far more ready to welcome all the tourism back to the land of smile, and also in terms of the warm hospitality. And for the business traveler here, as you can see that Thailand actually is the, I would say, the investor heaven country, and then will be a few countries left that I think you should come and really invest in Thailand, right? And then, as we all know here, I think we are facing a lot of perfect storm here, right? And then I really would like to ask for everyone, to really work together, and then to manage all this storm together, to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind, right? And this time, I think it's very important that we must address about inequality, right? Because of this perfect storm, of all this crisis, we don't have to mention it, right? Actually widen the gap of inequality, right? And then, impacting both in terms of social and also in terms of the economic aspect. And then it's our job, to really fix this one together. I think in this situation, I really would like to see that resilience and also inclusion are actually the most valuable currency, that we should use it now, right? We need, a resilient muscle as a common core strength across all the region, and then we cannot do alone, right? That's why I really asked, everyone here to help and address this urgency, so that we can deeply connect again, since the world now is open, and then solely engage as one, right? As we must emphasize on organic inclusive growth, we must do more agree on the broad term, right? I think we have a lot of signing between country, right? It's now time to move to action, right? And then we are APEC as one. I think we think as one and we should act as one. And we should leave no one behind, especially during this, let's say, difficult time, right? But I just want to leave to the floor that there are two urgent agenda that we must do in building this resilience and also inclusion. First, we must recommit the FTAP, right? We have been talking a lot, and now so has been changing. I think we must think about how to ensure inclusive and sustainable development happen across the region. Second, we must reimagine, Asia Pacific with the BCG economy to active in terms of community-centric and quality growth. This is to ensure that we pass the greener and the better world to our next generation. I know that my voice is not loud enough, but I call for all the business, leaders to amplify the power of our voice together, focus on what needs to be done to accelerate our ambition into action. This is what I would like to ask everyone to seek all this sense of urgency that we must act together and move forward, right?
Dr. Ding, if I can bring you in now, I mean, despite the global economic headwinds, your business is doing very well. What's your secret sauce?
Thanks for your question. I'm very happy to answer your question. Moutai is the world's most renowned brand of distilled liquor. Now, our Now our market value is nearly $300 billion. Yeah. I believe everyone knows Coca-Cola. Actually, our market value is higher than Coca-Cola. Since 1953, our products have been exported to 64 countries and regions. Facing the reformed changes, I believe that the future of trade and investment lies in 5 key words, namely 5-color development line. Firstly, the blue development line focuses on growth. Moutai is China national liquor. Our blueprint is always trying to keep the balance between quality, capacity, and marketing. Even under this uncertain, our average growth rate is more than 10% per year in the past 10 years. Secondly, the green development line focuses on sustainability. We attached more importance to ESG. We made a great effort to protect Zhishui River for 10 years and have donated 1.1 billion yuan to help 220,000 students for 11 years. Now, we are building a community of a shared life to maintain sustained blue environment. Thirdly, the white development line focuses on innovation. The white line means to write a new chapter. We make use of biotechnology to brew liquor and embrace digital technology to connect global market. Moutai app has become a phenomenon app, and the Moutai ice cream is the most pop star throughout China. Fourthly, the purple development line focuses on culture. Moutai culture, the representative of Chinese liquor culture, can be traced back thousands of years. In 1915, Moutai won gold medal in Panama. And it is part of many important historical moments between China and other countries. Fifthly, the red development line focuses on security. We pay more attention to risk management. The core is the industry chain and the supply chain security, by which we have built a community of shared interest with our partners. So for the shared future, we are ready to work with all of you with open, connected, and balanced mindset. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That is also causing a lot of geopolitical tensions, especially in this region. how do you encourage policymakers, businesses, leaders to continue, trying to achieve growth, continuing to invest, rather than pay attention to all the geopolitical tensions?
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for inviting me to this very important place. And actually, I also was serving when I was in the Foreign Ministry of Japan as a senior official to APEC. And the APEC is really a very unique place and very innovative. And there's a very strong support from the industry, ABAC. And it's really a great place to learn from. So I'm very happy to participate in this discussion today. And your question is really relevant. And actually, it's not just a geopolitical issue. There are a lot of other issues as well. So we are really facing a multifaceted difficulties and challenges, including the inflation and the tightening economic policy. And as John Denton said, there's some real risk of recession to some major economies maybe next year. And I hope it's not the case. But also there's a climate issue. And so we are facing a lot of global issues. And the trade is really important factor, one way or other, but we really need to make trade a part of the solution. I think that's a very important part. And the question, response to the question, what's really key is how we can cooperate to each other. And this is not a time of the easy time for such a cooperation. And the second point I'd like to make is, in order for that cooperation to happen, I think the real key word is trust, and how we can make trust building. And let me give you the example of what happened in June in Geneva. And I'm working for the World Trade Organization, and in Geneva there was a 12th ministerial conference, which was not very promising. I didn't think there would be any agreement before MC12, but actually MC12 was quite successful, having agreed by consensus of 164 members, including Russia, Ukraine, US, Europe, African countries, Japan, Australia, India, and 164 countries, members, agreed on 10 very important texts for agreement, which include the response to pandemic, response to the food crisis, and they also agreed to curb the fishery subsidies, to curb the harmful fisheries, and also maintaining the current practice of not imposing customs duties on electronic transmissions. All these kind of very important decisions was made. And there was a lot of difficulties in reaching to that end. And there was a lot of behind-the-scene trust-building activities by various members and also by the Secretariat. So I think that it shows that even at this very difficult period of time, it was possible for member countries to cooperate and agree by consensus on these kind of issues. But I think it's really important to continue and also try to make the WTO and also other international fora so that they will be able to respond to the current problems, including this kind of geopolitical issues. How we can overcome such problems. And I think we'd like to really stress the importance of APEC. APEC is represent 60% of the global GDP, half of the global trade, and it's really have a great track record of contributing to the multilateral or trading system, including ITA and expansion of ITA, and also APEC agreed the environmental goods agreement also. So those are really had a great contributions, and now is really time for APEC to do its role, very positive role, and we're very much looking forward to further contribution by APEC. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mr. Denton, if I can bring you in on this. I mean, the last time there was a big financial crisis globally, Asia was protected to a certain extent, partly because China was doing so well. We're in a bit of a different situation now, aren't we? How do smaller emerging markets protect themselves from the shocks to the global economy?
Knew they had to take care of themselves, and they built a level of resilience, but also there was a level of liquidity that was made available to support them. You talk about small and emerging economies. Frankly, they need a lot of help. The consequences that they're bearing are not because of choice. The regional crisis of Russia-Ukraine has had extraordinary global implications. That comes on top of the pandemic. And let's not forget, a number of economies were still emerging from the 08-09 financial crisis. That was not gone away as well. And then you had the pandemic on top of it. And so you've got a situation where you've now got some 40 to 50 important developing and emerging economies that are in grave financial risk. They don't actually need more debt. They actually need some liquidity. They need some support. And there's an issue here when you've got these converging crises and it's playing out in the sort of developing world. The financial architecture that's supposed to support the global economy wasn't kind of built for this. And so it's not able to incorporate some of the risks that there's actually being experienced now in the way they go about their business. I'm talking about the IMF, the World Bank, multilateral development banks, etc. And so there needs to be some reform going on with global financial architecture so we can get some liquidity. And in the immediate terms, we need to get, and that's what we've been calling for, by the way, which is an immediate additional issuance of what's called special drawing rights, which is getting liquidity into these emerging and developing economies. There's some blocks to that, but we need to keep working hard on that. And we actually need to at least maintain debt suspension here. And frankly, this is an area where the advanced economies within APEC could be playing more of a role, I think, in order to advance these issues. We need to get focus on this. I've met in the US with Treasury, I've met elsewhere. There's a bit of a view that you can kind of parse this bit of the financial crisis, that you can deal with the vulnerable, like the least developed economies. But there are middle income economies. Of course, one of the genius elements of APEC, it does include a lot of Latin American economies and others who are actually middle income economies. A lot of the multilateral development banks, in order to get money to them, they don't qualify. So there needs to be reform to support them as well. And I would have thought the APEC family of leaders should be seeing this as a key front and center issue to be pushing on, because it's certainly one that we've been pushing on at the G20 and pushing on at the G70. So what can these guys do? Frankly, they need help. And they need the advanced world. We actually now want them to also participate in the energy and carbon transition as well. They can't do it on their own, and we can't leave them behind. Inclusive growth, which is one of the elements of APEC, actually it means including them in the growth, so we actually have to help them get there. And there are some things that must just happen.
Dr. Ding, China helps a lot of economies in the region, doesn't it? But it's also creating a lot of friction by doing so. I mean, these geopolitical tensions that we were talking about earlier, does that affect your business, and if so, how?
Just now I answered your question in English. I wanted to answer your question now in Chinese. 茅台没有受到影响。我觉得越是困难的时候，越要向前；越是遇到挑战的时候，越要行动。所以，首先是作为企业自己，我们要采取行动。作为企业呢，我们希望国际社会。我们作为企业，希望国际社会，特别是各个政府能够做到以下3点。第一个呢，是能够互相开放；第二个呢，是能够开放以后，我们的产品互相就能够进去。比如说，我们和有些国家实行了电力产品的互相认证。 那么我们的产品进到市场以后，我们希望能够公平竞争。不管是哪个国家的产品，我们在受的待遇和政策是一样的。第三个呢，我们希望产品进去以后能够保护好知识产权。其实，今天我们亚太地区的 CEO 们能够坐在这里讨论这些问题，能够达成共识，然后呢，我们一起去行动，我们就一定能够克服困难和挑战。我始终相信我们的未来是美好的。所以茅台现在我前面已经说了，我们仍然能够保持2位数的增长。我们今年的计划是能够实现15%左右的增长。我希望这种增长能够给很多人带来越来越多的机会。谢谢。
15% growth is what Dr. Ding is aiming for. We're running out of time, but Mr. Phokasub and Ambassador, if I could ask you very quickly, and if I can ask you to be brief as well, what is your number one hope or dream for the APEC region when it comes to investment and trade?
Compete each other. Okay, you want to be a winner loser. I think it's time to get everyone on board, right? And then work together as one. And APEC actually is one APEC, right? So have to think as one and act as one, and let's move fast, right? I think we have been talking too much. We have been signing a lot of paper, and then never see any action, right? So it's just a matter of urgency. That's all.
Well, APEC is really doing a very good job, and for the past several decades, it created a kind of model, trade-led growth model, and by expanding the value chains. And 60% of the, for example, trade in APEC are intermediate goods, components and parts, which means that the APEC's trade is not really exchanging the goods for consumer goods. It's kind of part of the manufacturing process. And this model is really important, and there's a great hope to be expanded. So if the kind of value chain is going to be the real global value chain, and the rest of the world will be benefit by getting the investment and the part of the value chain, and that would be what our Director General is called re-globalization, and has impact to the world, and also merit of having diversification. Many companies will be able to avoid any risks. There's certain concentration of certain supply chains. So I think APEC and Asia Pacific has a very important role to lead the world in this respect. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the region has achieved a lot, but it's also been through a lot, and it's rebounding quite well. So hopefully there's many more successes ahead. Thank you all so much for having this discussion. Dr. Ding, Mr. Phokasub, Mr. Denton, and Ambassador Uyama, thank you very much for speaking to all of us today.